Welcome to this week's piece, or pieces. So I found these nightstands as a set on Marketplace. I know that I say this every time, but when I find a matching set of nightstands, I always pick them up. A lot of times they like to go a bit higher than I'm willing to pay, but these ones were very reasonably priced, so I scooped them up. They are particle board, and not even a good particle board, but they were in great condition considering, and everything worked well. They were just a little outdated. So anytime I'm dealing with pieces like this, I always prime because I don't trust it to get wet, and I just don't want to have to worry about that later on, somebody having one of my pieces and getting water damage. Because as you can see, this isn't even like a veneer over the top, it's more like a sticker. So I just want to make sure these are extra taken care of as I'm doing it. So starting as you do, removing hardware, giving everything a good clean. And as I'm looking it over, you kind of just decide on what you want to keep and what you don't. So I definitely don't need this top drawer to look like two drawers. I think it looks weird with the double knobs on there and the two escutcheons. I don't know, I don't like it. So we're gonna make a couple changes. And I just have these thoughts as I'm going through and getting everything cleaned up and figuring it all out. So I took my Durham's Rock Hard putty. You guys know I love that stuff. And I actually just filled in that line and the hardware holes. And I didn't want them, and I didn't know what I was going to do with the hardware holes, but I just knew that I didn't want those ones. So I'll keep the top key plate, but the rest of it, again, like I said, was all filled in with the Durham's putty. And then I'm just going to be taking this peel and stick wallpaper. Okay, disclaimer. I usually will not use peel and stick wallpaper on the front of a piece because I'm just nervous about it. I don't think it has the durability of regular wallpaper where I'm actually using my poly and getting it really stuck on there. However, Sarah did this piece last week and it was so incredible. I will link her below. Oh man, it just looked like a breath of fresh air and I loved it so much, and I was so inspired by it that I picked up this wallpaper and we're gonna do it. I'm just gonna make sure that I have it really well adhered, and I'm gonna give it a go a few times and then I'll let you guys know how well it's working out. So this was actually super easy to apply. I just put it right on over the top, got it all lined up. I leave a little extra room around the edges, and then I'll go in with a blade and cut it off. You do want to make sure that your blade is fairly sharp when you're doing this because you want to get a clean cut and you don't want it to be catching or anything to leave any jagged edges. That's where you're going to have peel up later on that could potentially be an issue. So I want to make sure my surface is as smooth as possible and it's going to last as long as possible. Because again, I'm not really sure about this. I love peel and stick wallpaper for drawer bottoms, but not, I don't know. We'll see. But I just thought it was so beautiful. And of course, I don't have the exact color that I want for this, so I'm going to mix one up because that's what I do. So I'm starting with the base of Light Khaki, and then I'm going to add in a little Patina Green, a smidge of Indigo, and just see what happens. And then I end up adding just a touch of buttercream because it has kind of a yellow undertone to it to kind of move it a little bit closer to the way that I want it. And then I just keep the paper next to me to kind of match it and make sure it's going in the direction that I want. But this is just playing around. You guys mix up whatever colors you want, or don't mix up anything. That's cool too. Now, as I'm mixing things up, and I keep looking at this drawer, and I can just totally see through that paper, and it is driving me insane. So I'm gonna end up peeling that off and redoing it. But as you can see, I'm just going to go ahead on those top drawers with the base coat, and then I'll put the wallpaper over the top of that so that I can't see through them because it's not quality workmanship and I can't live with it. So anyways, I'm gonna go through, give this entire set a base coat of the color mix up, and then we can get started with the fun stuff. I want these pieces to be a really smooth, clean finish. So in between every coat, I'm going to sand with this 320. I just wrap it around an old sanding block because there's quite a few curves on this and I make sure I can, get it fit into everywhere. On a textured piece, I won't always do this, but for the most part, you kind of pick and choose how you want to get your finishes. If you want a really smooth finish, I do recommend sanding in between every coat. Now we're going to get into blending. So this is going to be a very easy blend and not super subtle, but it's going to be a little more subtle than my typical blends. We're going to stay in the green families in this tone here. We're working with the colors that we already used to create the base coat. And then I'm going to take the same base coat and go over the entire thing. When I lay down this color here first, it helps everything to blend together more seamlessly. So I have this down, I just make sure it stays wet. If you're having trouble getting your second coat on, it's kind of dragging because that first coat is a little drying, just spray a little bit of water and it'll help it glide on a little more smoothly. And you guys know I typically like my darker colors at the bottom edges and I can go a little bit lighter as I go up. Again, this is very simple, so I'm just doing the two corners, adding on the color, and then I take a clean blending brush and I'm just doing swirling motions to blend it out. I will do this all over the entire piece wherever I want to add in the extra colors. But for this, I'm using Goblin Gray, which is a really, really deep teal color to add depth at the bottom. And then I'll do the Patina Green at the top two corners, and it's the exact same process. So super easy. You just take your time, blend it out, use the clean blending brush, make sure you're cleaning it off with a rag. I will also spray it with my water if it gets too muddy, just to clean off the brush a little bit more. And it's just going back and forth. No struggles here. I went in a little more depth on the drawer front to blend because it's easier to show you on camera because it's just a really easy camera placement. But the front of this is actually an easier blend because you're working in smaller surfaces and there's kind of less room to mess up, if that makes any sense. So it's the exact same process. I'm laying on the same color as my base coat and then I will blend into that. If you're not comfortable working in larger sections, do the lower half there and then just make sure your midsection can be reapplied with the base color, and then you can get that wet again and blend upwards from there. So anytime you have a stopping point, if you don't stop it in a blend, you can pick back up where you left off. It's really hard to make your stopping point in a blend because then you have to try and reblend that area, and that's hard to do. So if you create a stopping point that's a solid color that you can go back to and paint over, it makes it really, really easy to transition later if you need to work in smaller areas. I really hope that that made sense. Anyways, let's finish blending this out. You'll kind of see on this front section too, I'll mimic the colors that I did on the drawer because I know it's going to slide in. I don't care if they match perfectly for this piece because the drawers overlap on the outside, but I'm doing the green at the top and then I'll do the teal at the bottom. And then the top drawer doesn't matter because it has the paper on it, so I can kind of put whatever colors I want as far as the top goes. I thought I was gonna have something so cool to show you guys. So this I thought was my oil spray bottle. You know those food safe oil spray bottles that you can cook with? I ordered some of those to do something similar with this. This is my poly and glazing dust mix. I wanted to be able to mist this on here. It did not work at all. And it was a little upsetting. It just went on in these crazy blobs. I thinned it out to where it was ridiculously thin and it still did not work. So don't do this. I will keep experimenting. This is a different kind of bottle. It's a water mister bottle, but it's a terrible one. But it has the same top as the oil. I'm sorry, I'm going on. But I was very upset about this because I really wanted it to happen for you guys. But I'll try again with my other bottle and see what happens. So anyways, I'm storing it in that bottle now because that's where it's at. And I'm just going to do a ragging technique over this entire piece instead of misting it on how I wanted to. So if you watch my channel for a while, you know I really like this ragging technique anyway, so it's fine. Everything's gonna be okay. So now I'm just dumping it onto the rag and then in smaller sections and then working it into the piece. This again has poly in it, so wherever it's touching, it is sealing it, and it gives kind of a pearl finish. I already had this mixed up, but it's just whatever kind of glazing dusts you want to use. This one's Shimmer White and Silver, and then I mix it in with my poly, and again, this one was watered down because I was trying to shoot it through the bottle, but so I'm just going over this entire piece, and then after this, because it's kind of blotchy because of the ragging technique, I will also seal it with regular poly just by itself, and it will tone it down. So everything will just be kind of smooth in the finish. So as I said, I'm taking my regular satin poly. I just keep it in one of these little containers because it's easier to get to. And you can kind of see the mottled finish that the ragging technique leaves, and it will tone down as soon as you put on the poly over the top of it. So you'll still see it underneath a little bit, but it's not as aggressive as, you know, before you seal it up with satin. I do want to mention I did the same thing and sanded before I put this poly on as well, so it's a very, very smooth surface. And then as I'm doing the tops, I always put an extra bit around the edges, and then I'll go through and smooth it back out. Okay, so for finishing touches, I custom mix my own glazing dust with a very, very small amount of poly. So you saw what we did when we used a small amount of glazing dust with a large amount of poly. You can do larger areas and just get kind of a sheen. Where this, you want something really, really intense. So you'll want to do a very small amount of poly and quite a bit of glazing dust. And you just kind of go back and forth until you get used to the products. Or just use gilding wax, that works too. This is just a little easier to paint in, and it's a little more durable because it's actually set into a top coat. So anyways, I'm just throwing this in all the valleys and anywhere else I feel like it really needs it. And these little guys, I couldn't decide whether I wanted to make them stand out or sink them in, but I went with standing out since they were on there. So all I did was fill in all the gaps and then wipe them back so the gold sat in. And then I highlighted the center portion and then painted all around the edge to make those areas pop. So I was giving this the light sand, you can see the surface is a little rough, to put on the final coat of poly, and I've got weird bleed through from nothing. I mean, I have no idea, and sometimes things like this happen. So we're going to try and mask it and do a coat of poly over it and see what we can do to fix that. So I'm starting with my base color, and I want this kind of spread out brush. It looks a little mangled, and I chose this one on purpose because I don't want it to be a uniform line that I'm putting in, because I'm going to kind of tap it on there. So I'm using a very, very small amount of paint, and then I'm just going over just the area that has the bleed through, which is this weird rounded triangle. Literally, there was nothing on there until I did this last coat, which was a little upsetting. So I'm doing the most around this part, and it's going to make it stand out more, which is terrifying, I know. But then you're going to blend it into itself and then also blend it out around the edges, and it will start kind of looking like a larger spot of bleed through. Don't worry, it's not. It's just... And of course, I'm going to mention I'm not worried about this coming through again because there's multiple layers of poly under this that is stopping it from coming through again. I must have just missed this, so I'm not worried about it bleeding through again. And of course, I take the same mixture we used before and rag it on there to make it consistent with everything else. And then I will seal it up with top coat again. So this thing is going to be super protected by the time we're finished. Now it's time to add hardware. Hardware was tough for me on this one. I loved these gold bars. They fit really, really nicely. They couldn't go on the top drawer because the top drawer is a serpentine. So I used a single knob on the top and then these on the bottom. Plus the top had the escutcheon, which I kept because it matched the embellishments on the side. I don't know. You guys are gonna have to tell me what you think. And of course, I had filled in all the holes on the top because I wasn't sure what I was doing for hardware, so I'm just putting in the center knob. Drilled out the hole, easy peasy. We're good. Oh hi, Taryn here with Elegant Upgrades, and we've got our finished nightstands. So I really love them. They're not quite my typical style just because I feel like they're a little bit more modern than what I usually enjoy. I like kind of a more like old world feel, but I think they're beautiful. I feel like, I don't know, maybe instead of these marble hardware with the gold accents, I could just do a solid, I saw like little hex shaped gold. I think would have matched these a little bit better. I don't know, that's kind of been where my brain's at on the end result of these. As far as the paper goes, I went around when I sealed and made sure that I put any sealer in between the crack in this, so I can't feel any loose edges at all. Nothing seems to be coming up, and I've pushed them in and out a whole bunch, and there's nothing is coming up at all. So I'm very pleased with that because you guys know that was kind of a worry for me. And using like peel and stick wallpaper on that, it just makes me nervous. So that's something that I don't know, but it seems to be holding up really, really well. Again, I made sure I put sealer just along the edges, and I made sure it was a really, really, really clean cut. I tried to do my best to make sure that it was gonna last. And then, I mean, everything else seems pretty typical. I don't know, I like them. I think they're pretty. I think it's a cool thing. Thanks Sarah from 445 Designs for inspiring me this week. I think that's really fun. They're obviously nothing like what she did, but I love this print, and hers was so refreshing and lovely, and I like being inspired by other people, so I think it's fun to share that around. We'll get these guys listed, and I assume they'll go pretty quick just because nightstands, the matching sets, go really, really well for me. Quickly, I want to mention that I'm going to be opening up the join tab under my community area. You'll see it under videos. It'll be like a little blue, says join. You can click it if you want to. It's like the memberships for YouTube, and it's just so that I can really talk to you guys. So I do my videos on Premiere, which you guys can always talk to me on there, which is awesome, and I love having that like little morning coffee with you guys on Tuesdays. But this will be kind of more of a like talking to you back and forth live situation,
and I think it'll just be really cool to pick a topic and really go in depth and be able to share that. And I'm really hoping to get to know you guys a little bit better, those of you who join anyways. I just think that'll be really, really fun, because it's exciting to see your guys' names popping up in the comment section, and I feel like I'm starting to know who you are, and a lot of you share stories with me, and it's just fun to feel like I'm also getting to know you, so it's not like a one-way situation, which I think it is so awesome and incredible, because you guys know that I adore you. You're just the best people in the universe. Like I said, you send me coffees and you send me stuff from my wish list, and you just, every time I'm completely and totally blown away. I just can't believe it. So thank you so much. Can't wait to see you in the membership section, and let's get you some photos on these guys.